some more sessions before that. Thanks for coming to this one. My name is Daniele Muscetta. I'm a program manager in the System Center Operations Manager team. My colleague here is Marcin, is one of our developers. And then we'll invite later on well-known Brian Wren, MP author of sort, to wrap up what we say. We will cover some management pack updates, in general, what the situation is with management packs, where we stand, what are we doing in the area, both from management packs themselves and the tooling point of view, how this fits into both Fabric and infrastructure monitoring, as well as these DevOps themes that we have been talking about in other sessions. And we will give you a preview of the upcoming Azure Fabric Management Pack, which is a new version of the Azure Management Pack that was released a couple of years ago, and has some neat enhancements and additions. And then we'll switch gears after having covered the Azure monitoring, and we'll go into purely management pack authoring, and I'll leave that part to Marcin to do. And to complete, Brian will inform us about the state of the content on TechNet in various places, and the knowledge around the management pack topics. So you've seen this slide before in other sessions, some of which I'm also responsible for, and also other ones. We have been saying operations engineer and developers should, as much as possible, work hand in hand, because they really are trying to get the business to work and to get this infrastructure and these applications to run the best that they can, and to minimize the mean time to resolution where problems occur. Now, in other sessions, of course, we have seen this from an angle of the application performance monitoring feature, going down to the line of code, running web tests, and all these other interesting additions that we have in the 12.12 release. Now, in this session, we really want to kind of do a step back and look also at what the monitoring platform that we have, Operations Manager, has been doing for so many years and has been doing well, and that is management packs. You know, when your application is new, gets updated frequently, or isn't mature enough, it can fail in unpredictable ways, and in those cases, application performance monitoring will tell you where the application breaks in places that you weren't aware of before. But there are cases where you do know how your application fails. You do know the failure modes. You do know what logging the application has in place. You do know what instrumentation it provides. We have all been writing rules to collect performance counters, to run WMI queries. Those things aren't going away. Those things are, in fact, even more important as the application matures and improves, and those random issues tend to happen less. Then the predictable instrumentation is still a strong way to measure and monitor what the application is doing. If you think of it, even application performance monitoring relies on management packs under the hood. We enable the deep monitoring on something that is already on a website, for example, that is already being monitored by the Internet Information Server management pack. Because application performance monitoring can tell me if the application is slow or throwing an error, but it doesn't tell me if the application is totally down. Application performance monitoring runs within the application, and if the application is down, so is our instrumentation in that case. But the management pack will tell you, for sure, that the site is down. So we still need to complement infrastructure and code. And both these perspectives are important and useful to get the most out of your monitoring investment. the reason why operations manager is positioned into both the application management and the infrastructure management pillar, because he has this flexibility to look at different aspects of the health of your systems and of your applications, of your fabric, of your network, in the private cloud, in the public cloud, everywhere. So in terms of management pack, we are always proud to say that our management packs are really the best to monitor Windows workloads. And by workloads, we really mean those applications where your business, that you think that your business finds critical to run on. We really have the best management packs out there that allow you to understand how your applications are performing. And we have done several also investments within our own processes to make sure that the quality of those management packs keeps meeting a bar and improves, in fact. So for example, one of the changes that we made recently is change our release process so that we involve some of the internal Microsoft communities that also write management packs, not just the product team, and give them, and also the MVP community, and we give them early preview of the management packs that are about to be released so they can vet them and take a look at them and give feedback and spot additional quality issues that we might not have noticed, so that the bar is raised, and before they actually get released, we have additional eyes looking at them and scrutinizing and adding value to that. Part of this initiative is also something that, and there are a few links here you see to the blog, part of this initiative is also led to take some of the enhancement that some of the internal Microsoft team had already done to some of the management packs. For example, the DNS management pack was initially written by the product team, by the Windows team, by the people who own the DNS server code. It works, it's fine, but then some internal teams started using it and found that they had additional scenarios, additional requirements, they wanted to see more, and they customized it, and they added a few rules, and they added a few monitors, and they made it better. And now they contributed that back, and that has become part of the management pack that the Microsoft ships, not just by the product team. So it has the best, both product group knowledge and field knowledge combined to really give you a thorough and complete and consistent monitoring experience. Also, management packs are basically knowledge. How many of you, and in the context of knowledge, come all the way back to remember MOM 2000 or 2005? Quite a few people. Do you remember what the file extension was for the management pack files at the time? Anybody? Was AKM. That stood for, from the previous, from that product at the time was coming from an acquisition of code from another company. That acronym stood for Active Knowledge Module. And that was a very powerful name, because this pack, this thing I'm installing into the system, contains knowledge for the system to know what to look for, to tell me that something is broken, but knowledge for the human beings as well to fix that issue. And it is an extremely powerful concept. We are committed to release management packs that are the best of breed, and we continue releasing so many of them. I'm not sure if you're aware, I just put down a number there. 45 in just a little more than a year. It's almost one every week. We keep cranking out these management packs. Some of them are new to support new product versions. Some of them are updates with fixes, with enhancements, with improvements to the existing one. We also enhanced the sustained engineering process. So what was happening in the past is that different teams indeed own the management packs, and if you were finding a bug, a quality issue in one of the management packs, this was going to that team or the other team, each individual owner. We, as operations manager, we were kind of losing visibility into all these many issues, and we didn't have a single place to get traction. Now, we changed the process, so when you raise a quality issue, a code defect, a bug in a management pack through support channel, that bug comes through us. It goes to us. We look at it, and we will push the right owner to get those fixed, as opposed to going directly to them where we don't have visibility. So that's something, because we think that the quality of the management pack is really important, because it ultimately gets perceived as an issue with our product, not with the other teams. It is our problem if the management packs are not good. They need to be good for you, so that you need to tell us, and we will push the owners to get them fixed. We also have updated the management pack best practices analyzer with additional rules and with fixes to the existing rules, so that new management packs can be scanned for bad practices or worse practices automatically before being sent out, and we keep adding to this intelligence for well-known things that you should not be doing in management packs. So let's switch gear again, and we want to give you an example of one of the new management packs that will be released. This is not released yet. It has been shown only on slides because the network was down on Tuesday, but we'll show it again here in a bit more details. The last update to the Azure Management Pack was in 2011, so a while ago. And what it was doing was monitoring what Azure had to offer at the time. It was monitoring web roles and worker roles. Nothing more, nothing less, because that's what pretty much was there. Now, Azure has come up with new capabilities. And we also come up with new monitoring requirements. So we have added new scenarios and new functionality based both on what the customers have been asking and what Azure added to that offering. We also have enabled, and I'll show you in a minute, hybrid monitoring, because your applications typically don't just run in Azure, but sometimes they don't just run on premises. It's going to be a hybrid world for several years. You might have pieces here, pieces there, talking to each other. And so we really want to embrace this and give you visibility end-to-end in all these pieces. And so we allow you to define hybrid applications. Sorry. And then we are adding dashboards. You've seen it done this investment in dashboarding in 2012. There have been sessions here at the conference showing you how to create your custom dashboards. You have seen probably some new SQL dashboard that's also upcoming. We are starting to really crank out those dashboards more and more. We built the plumbing, the infrastructure in 2012, and now we're going to use it and ship new dashboards with management packs that enable new scenarios and new visualization. And ultimately, of course, there are a few bug fixes that were due based on the previous management pack. Now, what exactly is new in this management pack is we changed the configuration experience. Does anybody remember the old Azure Management Pack? Who has used it? A few hands. So the old Azure Management Pack had a simple wizard that was essentially asking you to give a subscription and a specific cloud service. And that was pretty much it, and that would be called an application. That was a very simple model, in fact, probably too simple. Nice, of course. There? I was in VPN there. That's a different box. I don't know. the people in the room before us, most likely. Then So the new configuration experience, which I'm going to show you in a minute, allows you more flexibility, allows you to tell operations manager to look at different subscriptions, because we've seen many companies have different subscriptions, and allows you to take multiple hosted services. In fact, we don't just enable monitoring, and we don't just ask you which one you want to monitor. First of all, we discover them. That's all we do. We enable which subscription you want to monitor, that one, okay, we'll discover all that's in the subscription. We don't necessarily monitor it. It might be test applications. It might be things you don't care about. Some you do, some you don't. You have to tell us then. And so then there is another template that allows you to go and customize what you actually want to monitor, the things that you want to see, if they're up or down, and collect metrics and performance data and so forth. We have added virtual machine monitoring. You know, persistent virtual machines or infrastructure as a service is the latest addition to Azure, so we want to, of course, monitor that too. And storage account. Oh, by the way, before I pass it to storage account, for virtual machine monitoring, by default, we monitor availability. Is the machine up or down? That is because the persistent virtual machine, under any point of view, is just a Windows machine, just like the ones you would have on your own premises. And as long as it can talk back to the management infrastructure, you can just install an agent on it. You cannot install an agent on the platform as a service because that's elastic. Those instances become more or less, and they change names, so that's very hard to authenticate with. For that, we use the management API. But for the virtual machines, you can also deploy an agent to it to enrich it above what the Fabric Management Pack provides. Then we have introduced a storage monitor. That's very important. You want to know if my storage accounts are available. If my storage accounts are available, that's where my data is, and that's where my VHD, virtual hard drives, for my virtual machines are stored. If that's down, I'm not in business. It's very important. And size. Size of the storage account is directly related to billing. I mean, how much space I store, that's how much I pay. So I would like to have an idea of how much I'm storing in the storage account, and I would like to have visibility into that, and I would like even to have thresholds and be alerted on that. Another common scenario is monitoring the expiration of the certificates. If the certificates that I use for management expire and I don't renew them in time, I essentially cut myself off the possibility of monitoring Azure, which doesn't seem like a good thing. And then we have introduced the distributed application template to take all these different pieces, both from on-prem and online, and put them in a single distributed application that lights up some dashboards. And this is essentially all the things that I'm going to show you with this other environment. Let me switch to this other machine. We are in Operations Manager. So I'll walk through a bit of the things that I just mentioned. So once imported new management pack, you have this new setting. This is similar to both the System Center Advisor experience, and it's also similar to the Global Service Monitoring. We are starting to place things in administration through management pack imports. And as you see, I've enabled this, my Operations Manager system to go and discover 2 different subscriptions. I can add multiple ones. All that I was asked for, I can do by doing update. It asks me the subscription ID, and it asks me for a certificate and the password that keeps that certificate protected. It doesn't expose me to RANES accounts or all complicated things. They get done behind the scenes for me. The model is still the same as the old MP for that matter, but I don't have to create RANES account. I just upload a certificate. It creates it for me. So a lot easier. Once this is done, I end up with a discovery of essentially this Azure inventory. So I have discovered cloud services. I have all my cloud services. I have my storage accounts. I have my virtual machines across all these different subscriptions in all the same state views, first of all. And there are some of these views, as you can see, are for the most common types, the most common objects I want to look at. But then there are more detailed ones for things like the role instances and going a bit more in detail, the things that I don't use maybe continuously. Now, once I have the discovery, I'm still not monitoring anything, but I know what's in there. And then with this management pack template of Windows Azure monitoring, I can essentially create, I'll open one that I've already created, but the wizard shows me the exact same 3 tabs that you'll see in a second here. And I can add from that inventory different cloud services, different virtual machines, and different storage accounts, and compose what I think is an Azure application to me. What I define as such. And then monitoring will be enabled for these things. This allows me not to overload the system just by collecting performance counters for all my things in Azure, which maybe some of them are tests, some of them are not important. So I can combine them this way. Very simple. Once I've done this, I can further combine these objects into a distributed application. We provide a new management pack template, and this is very, very similar to what we have done with the 360-degree dashboards for application performance monitoring. I just select a management pack, and there is a new template for a Windows Azure distributed application, as you see, that I can use, and place objects in there. These are, I'll just show you how the template looks like. I already have a couple of those defined, and I don't need to save another one now, but it's essentially having some synthetic transaction tests for availability purpose. That's the same things you would be using also for APM, for 360 dashboards, so global service monitoring and such. You have the cloud services that can be either virtual machines or cloud services. You have some dependencies, which are other different types of objects from your own operations manager environment that you think this application depends on, and there is SQL dependencies that can also, again, be coming from the SQL management pack. Once you've done that, you have all these new dashboards to light up. So we have a couple of the service state and this topology dashboard. The topology dashboard gets lit up regardless of you having run through the distributed application. This one just happens. And the interesting thing about this dashboard, let it load for a minute. This is still not the final version, so it's a bit slower than what it would be. What it shows here, it has all my cloud services and virtual machines, and it also discovers automatically the connections between them or towards external resources. So for example, this hosted service here, this cloud service here is talking to another cloud service, and is talking to a website, and those lines get found out automatically out of the configuration and shown here, so you can understand the impact of one piece of your infrastructure going down affecting another. And then I have the service state dashboard, where I see the applications I've defined with the distributed application designer. And from here I can pivot into 2 additional drill down dashboard, such as the availability dashboard that shows me availability over time and history, my trends, give it a second to load, and there are service level agreements associated with it. So this application seems very stable, has been available 100% of the times for the last 24 hours. I'm good with this one. But another good dashboard that is a drill down from this composite service I created in Distributed Application Designer is the capacity and resource utilization. This one is interesting because it tells me how many machines, how many instances I've had per each of my roles. Now, in this case, it's a silly demo application, so it's only got 1, but you will be able to see when you were scaling out or scaling back down and keeping track of how you have been using the number of instances, which, again, is useful both to understand your load scale and how the load and the performance changes in relation to the number of instances over time, and also allows you to control essentially what you're paying, because you pay as you have more or less instances, of course. And then we have metrics that are, with some new workflows, aggregated per role. So if I have multiple role instances, I can, of course, still go and see the CPU for each one of them, like I would do in the old management pack. But in the new one, I also see an average across all of this, regardless of how many they were at the point in time, which is it's pretty interesting information. And the same about memory. And there will be something coming in this sense in the future also about the storage scenarios. For now, we don't have dashboard for that. But there are plans to add them. And as a matter of fact, there are information already collected. So if I pick one of my storage accounts, and for now, using a legacy performance view, I can see information being collected about like the size in megabytes of my storage account over time. And this will also eventually be rolled into dashboards. It isn't just ready in this preview version, so that's why I'm using the legacy view. At the same time, on this information, on the Health Explorer, you'll see that we have new monitors. Did I actually click it? Now I did. And it's telling me, in fact, that this storage account is above threshold. There is no knowledge yet. We'll fix it before it's final. But this will explain what it means, as usual. And this seems to have been doing back and forth as files were added and removed to the storage account. So I've been going up and below threshold. This is, of course, customizable with an override, as usual. And so you have control on whether to be alerted. You define the threshold, essentially. We'll try to ship a sensible default, but then, of course, that relates very much to billing. So every company will have its own requirement and expectation on the size that they want to consume in Azure. Do you like it? Okay, good. I'm glad you do. It really is a step forward compared to the old version we had, and enables a lot of new monitoring scenarios for Azure. Good. Wow. Okay, now let's switch gears. This is the management pack that Microsoft is shipping, right? But then you want to create your own, don't you? So really, the story here has been a bit diverse in terms of which tools were used to do which type of monitor. Now, everybody really starts in the operations console. Everybody, as it approaches operations manager, that's where you are. That's the console you have. There are some authoring capabilities. You start playing around with that. You start creating some rules. Of course, you set overrides. You do some tweaking of the default threshold with ship. Turn on or off alerting for certain things based on your need. That's really great, and you can do all these things in the operations console. You can also use some basic authoring. You can also use some of these management pack templates like the one I've used for Azure, but there are other ones like process monitoring, Windows service monitoring, or even APM, or SQL queries, OLEDB, and so forth. There are several options to actually get started and monitor your infrastructure and applications from within the operations console. Anyhow, those options, although nice, they are, as you know, limited. They don't let you use the full power, the full capability of what the operations manager agent is really able to do and what the workflow engine is really capable of achieving. In order to do those things, you need to get your hands a little bit dirty with XML and start looking at how these management packs really are behind the scenes. When you do that, it is understandably a step in a direction that many IT pros might feel not completely at ease with, but it is really a step that allows you to take advantage of all the capabilities the workflow engine provides. For that, we think that our Visual Studio authoring extension is the tool that allows you to take this full advantage of the platform. With that, you can do pretty much anything. We do have we have built on top of the Visual Studio framework because that gives us a lot of flexibility and power to simplify the way you have to write this XML. How many people have been writing this XML for management packs in Notepad? Yeah, so some people have, right? You know, it isn't that great. I mean, of course you can do it, but Visual Studio will help you with things like IntelliSense. You type and it tells you what the next thing is and how was the attribute called? It's there, it shows up, and oh, that was the one I needed. Visual Studio tools allow you to build completely custom, extremely powerful management packs. And it's also the only tool that allows you to create management pack bundles. How many of you know what management pack bundles are? Okay, quite a few. For those who do not know, management pack bundles are essentially a new file format we have in the 2012 release that contain not just the management pack definition, the XML file, but also contain additional files, additional resources. Those are different types of things. They are files that can be transferred to the agent, or more powerful, they are modules that can run on the agent, or they are extra pieces of code that can run in the console. This means that by dropping in a management pack into your system, you can have a new capability added to the agent, or you can have a new widget lighting up in the UI without you having to go and install a new version of the agent all over the place, or a new version of the console everywhere you have the console. And so this is the only tool that allows you to take advantage of those things. With this starting point, I will leave the podium to my colleague Marcin, who is much more expert than me in actually using the Visual Studio tool because he is a developer, but hopefully what he's going to show will apply to.
Thanks, Daniel. Like the name suggests, Visual Studio authoring extensions are really extensions that we build on top of the standard Visual Studio development experience to enable you to author management packs. And like Daniel said, it is the only tool that we offer that actually lets you take advantage of the full power of the MP schema. In other words, anything you can do with an MP in Operations Manager, you can do in Visual Studio authoring extensions. And it is an XML-based experience, but we promise that we do not require you to write any C, C++, or C# code. It really is primarily XML-based. And on top of that, we have features in VSAE that essentially make it easier for you to write that XML, to come up with that XML, and also to make it more manageable. We have features like IntelliSense, which offers helpful completions when you're typing that XML. We also have a number of navigation features. So for example, if you are looking at a rule, and that rule is using some module that you're not familiar with, you can just right-click on that module reference, go to definition, and we'll take you to that MP that has it, whether it's in your own project or if it's somewhere else in some sealed MP. And we'll just show it to you. The same way, you can always find if something is already using that element that you're looking at. Maybe there's a class, like, say, Windows Computer, and you want to see what other people are doing with it. So you just right-click on that, whether it's in our UI or in the XML editor, click Find All References, and we'll show you which management packs are using that in what ways. And of course, you can then take it further by navigating to that place where it's being used, and I'll demo that actually later. And of course, we do have templates. We have some basic XML templates that you can just add an XML file to your project and edit it later, and that's basically that. And also, we have these templates. We don't really have a good name for them, but what you can do with them is you add them to your project. You fill in some properties in the UI. We have some helpful picker dialogues that make it a little easier to enter the values. And you save them. And as long as they're valid, we just generate the XML for you. And that also kind of saves you time to, basically, you don't have to type that XML. We generate it for you, and you can kind of use our knowledge, our understanding of the MP schema to kind of, to your advantage. And of course, if you are going down to the XML editor, you can just use copy and paste. Obviously, it's supported. You can also use just basic search and replace to perform some basic MP refactoring. And I will also show that later. And in the past, some of the tools that we released required you to actually work on a giant XML file and find things in it, and also prevented you from making any drastic changes to it. So if you, for example, if you wanted to rename something, we wouldn't really let you do that because the MP would become invalid for a period of time until you make all the renames in that XML. With Visual Studio authoring extensions, we defer the validation part until you're ready to actually build the MP. When you build, that's when we actually perform the validation, and then we spit out an MP. And if there are errors, then we show those errors to you. And of course, if you set it up right, and it's fairly easy, there's UI for that, you can get it to the point where you make a change in the MP, you press a button to build, verify the MP, and if it's valid, we can also automatically import it into your management group so you can test the MP and see if it actually works correctly. And I will show that later as well. And if you're interested in source control integration, because we are in Visual Studio, we get that pretty much for free and seamlessly integrate with it. And I'll skip the bundle part because Danielle actually covered it very well. So let's just jump into the demo. So we've shipped a Visual Studio 2010 version of the authoring extensions, I think in June, end of June 2012. And we are currently working on a Visual Studio 2012 version. And this is a build. In fact, this is a build from yesterday. And if you go in here, we can start working on management packs by basically clicking New Project. You'll notice that there's a folder here called Management Pack. And if you pick your favorite product, you can see that there are some project templates that you can use to create an empty management pack. And we've changed the names a little bit for those of you who have seen the tool before, but the version that is in the project template indicates the minimum version of the Operations Manager product that the MP will import on. So if you pick the 2007 R2 management pack template to create your project, it'll import on 2007 R2, 2012, 2012 SP1, and any future version that we release. But instead of creating a new project, I will instead convert an existing management pack just by going to File, New, and then Project from existing management pack, and use the wizard that pops up to convert that management pack that I've already exported out of the Operations console into an MP project that I can work on in Visual Studio. And I've saved this management pack here, so I'll just add it. Click Next. Of course, management packs have dependencies on other management packs. So when you're converting an MP into a project, you actually can help us figure out what the references are. If you're using system library MPs that come with Visual Studio authoring extensions, then we'll find them for you. But if you are using some other, like if your management pack actually depends on some other MPs, perhaps some third-party MP or something that we didn't include, you will have to manually resolve it by just clicking Browse and finding the file on your system. And generally, you can just download that MP and just give it to the wizard, and we'll consume it. When you click Next, on this page, you can pre-configure the key that will be used for sealing and signing of the management pack. But you can change your mind later. There's another UI where you can change the signing key, so I'll just ignore this for now. And on this page here, we just need to tell the wizard where to save the project that we will generate. So I will put this on the C drive in the MMS 2013 folder, and I will call my solution demo. And click Next. And this starts the conversion process. Uh-huh.
You referred back to the reference MPs.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you provide just a default file location where you have the exporter, third-party management packs that maybe see management packs?
Right now we don't, but this is definitely something that we can look at. Oh yes. The question is whether there is a location, folder location, where you can drop third-party MPs for the wizard to actually pick them up. And right now, we don't really have that. Well, in theory, you can actually drop it where we already put the MPs, and the wizard will pick that up. But we don't recommend it because then it's confusing which are system libraries and which are third-party MPs. So you could potentially hack it, but like I said, we don't recommend it. But we can definitely think about including that in another release. It's definitely fair feedback. So the conversion has finished. As you can see here, we have a solution. And for those of you unfamiliar with Visual Studio, a solution is essentially a collection of projects. That's all it is. It's just a fancy name for that. And here we have our management pack project. And there we have the references that we saw in the wizard. Of course, you can, if you need to, you can add more references. You can pick another sealed management pack file or a DLL, or even a bundle we can specify, and we'll also be able to consume that. So let's take a look at what's actually in the project that we just imported. So I'll go to View, select the Management Pack Browser option. Disappeared on me. There we go. This brings up the UI that we have that lets you browse through different MPs that are actually loaded in Visual Studio. And you can scope it down to just your management pack projects, or you can include the references as well. And if we look at our MP, we kind of have a logical organization of various MP concepts. But in the current MP that we have a performance rule. And in fact, this MP was meant to monitor an application called MS Pet Shop. And this rule is collecting a performance counter basically every 5 minutes. And we also have a monitor. If we go to monitors, and this is a monitor that just alerts when that perf counter exceeds 5,000 just by looking at the preview XML that we offer. And like I said before, we do have go to definition. So I can just click that. Just right-click on the monitor, go to definition. And this will actually take me to the XML file that is in my project that we converted. And before I explain a little more, I should probably explain what these MPX files are. If you look here in the Solution Explorer, we have this MPX file. This is a bit of a departure from the previous authoring tools that we had. Previously, like I said, we worked on one giant XML file. In Visual Studio authoring extensions, we allow you to have one or more smaller XML files, which allows you to organize your MP source code into smaller pieces that are more manageable and easier to deal with, whether in source control or just in person. For example, what I usually do in my management packs is group them according to the feature that I'm providing monitoring for. So let's say if I have a component that requires some monitoring by, let's say, an event rule and some collection rules and a monitor, I will usually either put it on one fragment in some folder or something like that. But we really don't enforce any organization, so it's up to you. If you insist, you can actually keep putting things in just one XML file, and that will work just as well. When you build the project, though, we take all of those XML files, and we just merge them together into a single MP XML. And this is the unsealed form of a management pack that you're probably all familiar with. And if you configure sealing and signing in the build by going to the properties dialog and the build tab, switching to the build tab, you can actually specify a signing key. We will actually generate a sealed MP as well. Just automatically. And there's also functionality to auto-increment a version on every build when you're doing a build from Visual Studio. And the schema of these XML files is basically the same as just the MP schema that you're already used to. The only difference is instead of a management pack at the top, you have a management pack fragment. And of course, there is no manifest section because the references come from the project and the name of the management pack comes from project properties where it's defined on the management pack tab, as you can see here. So in this current MP, we have two workflows that target Windows Server Computer, which means that they actually get deployed to every server computer in your management group, and then they run on every of those server computers, which is not something that you want unless you have the MS Pet Shop application actually deployed to all those machines. Generally, it will be confined to a small subset of those. So instead, we need to create a discovery. We need to actually create a class that would be the server role, the MS Pet Shop server role, and also a discovery for that class. And then we will retarget these workflows to that class. So I will skip that part. But before I go forward, I want to also show you the simple refactoring that you can do on the MP.XML just by using a standard search and replace feature that's present in any editor, including the Visual Studio XML editor. You can simply do Control-H, that is the default binding, and you can also find that by going to Edit, Find and Replace, Quick Replace if you prefer the manual route. And I can just change this, the ID of the rule that I've selected to something more human readable, because this actually came from the operations console, and the console tends to generate these kind of random IDs for different workflows. And I will just enter a new name. I will call this authoring.demo.mspatchshop collection rule. I will scope this to the current document, click Replace All, and it will just replace all of the occurrences of the MS Pet Shop, of this name, this ID, in this MP. And this is a simple way where you can just clean it up very easily and quickly. So I will skip the discovery creation part because it gets essentially to save time. I will share the samples on the Mom Team blog, and you will see actually every stage of this demo in there, and as separate projects that you can take a look at or even compare. So just in the interest of saving time, I will just load an already prepared project with the discovery created. Go to Project Solution. So I've put all the classes and discoveries in the model folder, and I've also moved our familiar fragment into the monitoring folder, just because that's my preference. You don't really have to do that, but it's just up to you. So let's add some more monitoring. And just to do that, and the fact we need to improve the monitoring of that MS PetShot application that I mentioned, we need to alert on a number of events that the application drops that indicate certain failure conditions. So I will just right-click on our folder, add new item, and let's see what kind of templates we have. So I will search for a rule template in the UI, and here we have an alerting rule template right there. So let's use this. I will call this event rules and add this to the project. Just resize this a little bit. So here we added this different kind of file. It's an MPTG file, and MPTG stands for Management Pack Template Group. And just like the name suggests, it is a group of templates. So by default, we just added one alert rule template, but I can just right-click on that and add some more. And we have templates for tasks, assembly resources, discoveries, monitors, other kinds of rules, and for views. And if you see here on the side, when I select the rule template, in the properties window, I can enter some values using a UI. So let's enter something. So let's give it a name. We'll change the ID to, I will call this event 42, because we're going to be collecting event 42 from the MS PetShot application. I'll also fix the display name, event 42, provide a description, rule that alerts on event 42. And let's also configure the alert for this. I'll just use event 42 has occurred. This is obviously a very non-actionable alert name, but for the purposes of the demo, it'll have to do. And let's enter also an alert description. So here I'll just click the ellipsis button, some UI pops up. I've already prepared an alert description. I'll just paste it in. And let me maximize this. So our alert description is event 42 has occurred on machine, and then I provide this dollar expression that tells that will be resolved to the network name of the machine on which that event has occurred. And notice that I didn't actually explicitly declare any alert parameters. We'll figure it out just by looking at the alert description. We'll generate the alert parameters for you. So I will click OK to save this. And let me also expand the MPTG file a little bit. Here, you will see that we have this familiar MPX file. Well, familiar now, at least, because now that I've explained what it does. And what happens is the MPTG file when you save it, generates XML content. Uh-huh.
My question, in the alert description, you have dollar target dollar,
Mm-hmm.
do we have an object figure for that? Because sometimes you want to pick some values down deep down in the workflow, and you need to have a value dollar, whatever, whack.
So currently, the question is, do we have a picker for the dollar expressions in the alert description? And the answer is, right now we do not, but it's definitely something that we can think about adding.
Right.
I agree, that would be very useful. Let me just split the view a little bit. So if I save this, you will see that we have some issues remaining. We need to specify a target. So I'll just go to specify a target. We have a picker for that. I will pick our MS Pet Shop server role class and use that. And we also need to specify a data source. So it's a rule, so rules require one or more data sources. So I can just go to data sources property, click the button, add a data source. I will pick the event provider because we're collecting a Windows event. And I also have to provide some configuration here for the module that I just selected. So I can just start typing. In fact, IntelliSense will just offer me certain completions. I can configure the computer name or log name and the expression and so on. But I've already prepared a snippet just to save some time with all the configuration. So I'll just insert it. And you can actually do this yourself. It's a standard Visual Studio feature. And here we have a configuration for the event provider that looks at events on the target machine in the application log. And we're looking for event display equal to 42 and publisher name MS Pet Shop. I click OK. OK. And if I save this now, you will see that we just generated a bunch of XML. And we didn't really have to enter that much. We just had to enter really the expression and some configuration for the module that we picked. But everything else was generated for us. And here we have our rule. With the expression, since it's an alerting rule, we also generated a write action to generate the alert. We have a string resource for the alert message. And you will also notice that we figured out the alert parameter, that there is an alert parameter. And we also generate the appropriate placeholders in the description of the alert message. So let's find out if this rule actually works. To do that, I can simply go to View, Management Pack Browser. Let's scope this down to my Management Pack. Let's find the rule. So now we have our Event 42 rule here. I can right-click and start the MP simulator. Now, what this will do is it will start the build process for the management pack. It will validate it, generate the MP, and then we'll start the simulator. And this is actually, we already built, we were successful, and now the simulator is starting. And there we go, we have the simulator. So every workflow that runs in Operations Manager requires some input. And this is true in this case. And in fact, in this case, it comes from the target of the workflow. So we need to specify the network name where to feed into the module that we use, the event provider module. So in this case, I can just specify dot and use the local machine. And we also need to specify a target ID and management group ID. For the purpose of the simulation, we don't actually care. We can just generate some random GUIDs by clicking resolve all GUID expressions here. And we just generate some random GUIDs. If you're feeling uncomfortable with this, there's also an option to resolve the $target expressions via a management server. And you can provide name of the management server and credentials, and then pick the right target from your management group, and we'll use the right values from that. And that also should make it fairly much simpler to come up with these values. And for the management group name, we can just specify some string. And now I can just start the simulation. Now, to start the simulation, there is a certain requirement. You need to have the agent actually installed on the machine that you're doing the simulation on. on which you're doing the simulation. If the agent is not installed, we'll give you an error message that tells you to install the agent. And of course, looks like we're actually getting already some events, which is interesting. But let me drop another event just to show you that the simulation is working. Here I'm just using event create to drop an error event with ID 42 to the application log with source name MS Pet Shop and the description something went wrong, also incredibly non-actionable. But it will have to do for the purpose of the demo. When I drop this into the event log, we will see in the simulator that we got some event data here. And if I maximize this, we can actually see the XML of the data item that SCOM uses internally to pass basically pass data items between modules in workflows. And this is useful just for checking. You can see that we have our the event was picked up by the rule with event display number 42. The description matches what we dropped into the event log. We can also look at the publisher name and event source name and all of those attributes and brother elements. On top of that, you can use this functionality to actually look at other data items that your workflows in your management packs are generating. And you can use that information to come up with $data expressions when you're composing workflows. Because the $data expressions are essentially XPath that finds data in the data item XML. So the tool is also useful for that. And you may be wondering why we have two data items coming out. Ignore the first one. It was some aberration. The reason for that is that we have two modules in the workflow. The first module is the event provider that basically generates a data item when it captures the event that we wanted. And then we have a write action, and the write action just releases that passes that data item through. So this is why we're getting two. So we know that the rule works. I can now close the simulator. So let's go back to our MP. So this is great. We have one event rule, but realistically, we're going to need event rules for all of these events. We need 6 additional events. And also, we need some additional information in the alert message for every one of those events. So one way to do this would be to copy this template and paste. If I change the ID to 43 and save, you'll see that in the generated XML, we now have 2 event rules, one with 43 and one with 42. Of course, I've just introduced a bug into the management pack because both of those new event rules are actually looking at event 42. So we're going to be getting 2 alerts, and we're definitely not going to be checking the event number 43. So this approach will work. You can change all the 42s into 43s, and it'll be correct, but there is a faster way to generate multiple copies of a certain XML pattern in an MP. So I will just delete that event 43 rather. And instead, I will copy the generated content into the clipboard. Copy. And we will use a feature called snippet. Simply, I'll put my new snippet in a new folder. Call this snippet. And add an item to the folder. Let's find this. Called snippet template. And I can keep the default name. And here, I will replace the default content with what I had in the clipboard. So we need when you start writing a snippet, an XML snippet, you need to figure out which parts of the pattern will stay constant every time you make a copy and which parts will actually change. And in our case, it's pretty obvious. It's the number 42 we need to change to some kind of placeholder. We do this by pressing the pound, basically pound, and picking one of the options in the list of completions. In this case, I'll just use text, and I will give this a name, and I will call this event number. So we've created a placeholder, but really we don't want to repeat the bug. We need to really change all of the 42s into these placeholders. So I'll just copy this, and again use search and replace to change 42 into our placeholder. And this replaces all the 9 occurrences that were remaining. And now when we scroll around, we will see that we have these placeholders in wherever they need to be. Let's also add another placeholder. We said we wanted to have some additional information in the alert description. So I can just create another placeholder. And I will call this additional information. And now we've created a snippet. So let's see how we can use it. You can simply right-click on the monitoring folder or any other folder, click New Item, select Snippet Data. There used to be, in the 2010 release, it was called Snippet. Now it's called Snippet Data, just to make it, we changed the name just to make it a little more clear. You can add it to the project. And also, let's look at the XML that will get generated out of it. We'll pick the only snippet that we have in the project. And here I can simply enter data manually. And notice we have 2 columns in this table. We have the event number, and we also have additional information. And that actually corresponds to the placeholders that we put in the snippet template. One sec. They are and the order that they are in is actually the document order. So if the first event number placeholder was first, and additional information was second, this is why this is the order they get in the table. Yes. I'm not sure I understand the question.
So here we have event number and additional information.
Mm-hmm.
So you had additional information twice.
So that was actually a bug in the 2010 version. They were supposed to become one placeholder and one column in that table rather than multiple ones, and we fixed that in this release. And if I can enter 43 for the event number and just say hello world and save this, now we see that the XML that we generated applies to the XML that we generated has everywhere in the place of the event number 43, and in the place of the additional information field, we have hello world. So this is great, but again, it's very manual. You have to enter these things manually, and I have an Excel sheet here with the events that I actually want. So why not just save this to a CSV file? And I will save it, use the CSV MS-DOS format. Save it. And yes, I do want to use this format. So I can make the Excel go away now. And I can just import that file by clicking on the Import CSV button, Events to Alert on, CSV, open. And here we get a dialog that asks us whether we want to append to the existing data in the table or replace the existing data with what's coming from the CSV file. I'll choose to replace the data rather. No, we need to close Excel. It's holding down the file. So I'll just repeat the import. And we have the data imported. When I save this, you will see that we have more XML generated. And you will see now that we have event 43, 44. If I keep minimizing these rules, you will see that we actually have the same number that matches the same number of rules, that as many rules as we have rows in the table on the side here. And of course, if we scroll down a little bit, you will see that we have all the string resources that we need, all the display strings, all of this just generated and merged together into a single MP fragment. So this is basically a way to create a lot of monitoring very quickly. We just created 6 rules, but honestly, we can just have an Excel sheet with 50 or 100 of these and just do the same way, and the difference in the time it takes to do this is really not that big. So like I said, a lot of monitoring can be created very quickly. So this is great. Let's seal this MP now that it's almost ready. You can just right-click, go to Project Properties, go to the Build tab, check the checkbox, and pick a key that we will use for sealing and signing. And I have a conveniently placed key file here. I will use it, and I can save it. In addition to that, I can select a management group, as long as the network actually lets me connect to it. And the name of the management server is this. And I'm going to use my current Windows credentials to actually connect to it. I also have the option to log in as a different user. And in that case, if you try to log in, you'll get a credentials prompt to enter. But we do cache the credentials for the lifetime of the Visual Studio instance. So we will really only ask you once for the credentials. But if you close Visual Studio and reopen it, we'll ask for the credentials again. So that also makes it a little easier to work with this. But I can just use my Windows credentials because the management server will actually accept my credentials. I will add it, or rather, I will show you how to test the connection first as well. Can actually test the connection. It takes some time to connect. We're actually tunneling through a VPN as well. And we have a successful connection. We add it to the management group, and we can go to the deployment tab, configure deployment just by clicking on the deploy projects to default management group only. And now that my management pack change is done, I can test it out simply by clicking the start button, which will actually build the management pack, like I said, with a single click. It builds, verifies it, and then we'll import it into the management group. As you can see here, we're importing. And once the dialog goes away, the management pack will be imported into the management group. And we've successfully imported it. And if I go to the operations console, the administration pane, which will take some time to open. So you'll have to take my word for it because we're kind of running behind schedule. So let me just recap a little bit. Switch to the PowerPoint. We are working on a new release. The big thing that we're adding is Visual Studio 2012 support. We're making some improvements. We're fixing some bugs, making some improvements to the MP import wizard around extraction of resources. We made some fixes to the MP simulator, allowing you to simulate tasks. Like Daniela said, we did some changes to the management pack best practice analyzer as well. And now I will hand the reins off to Brian to talk about some of the changes that he's making to our knowledge around MP authoring. And also, he'll tell you, he's the guy that will tell you how to come up with the XML that we were coming up with during the session.
Cool. Where am I going next? Okay. Thanks. So my name's Brian Wren. I'm sure many of you have been to my sessions over the years, and basically I own all the content, knowledge, samples, the whole bit for writing management packs. This is actually a slide I showed last year, which was talking about some changes that we're making basically to our overall approach of how we're delivering content, of how we're essentially providing you all this guidance. Classically, everything, TechNet library, MSDN library, I write it, we publish it, it sits there, and it doesn't change until basically I change it. And we actually are making a move to get everything out in this space onto the TechNet wiki. So if you're not familiar with it, go to TechNet, wiki right at the top, fairly straightforward. As wikis are, anybody can edit it, right? You could go right now and you could modify my content. And so the entire MP authoring guide that we've had out there for, I guess, 2-3 years, that entire thing now has been moved into the wiki. A lot of updates have been done now to it, updating it for OM12. All of the walkthroughs that we had that were based on the authoring console walkthroughs are still there. They now also include the Visual Studio walkthroughs as well. So getting everything updated on there. Still have a lot of other content to get in there. If you watch the dashboard session, I think it was a couple days ago yesterday, we're going to be doing all that content. So we're going to be providing guidance on doing custom dashboards. We're going to eventually get to guidance on doing custom widgets. So I would absolutely encourage you to, the reason it's out on the wiki is to really do some better collaboration with the community. A lot of you out there, a lot of our partners have a ton of good information. They're doing some good work. Please, feel free. I mean, augment what we've got. If you've got some good content on some of the topics we've got in there, go make an edit, point it to your content. We absolutely monitor it. We're going to make sure people don't damage it. We're going to validate the information that's putting in there every single time anybody edits anything. I get an immediate email. I make sure I keep up with making sure that the content is good and solid and correct in the whole bit. We're also trying to do a better job of getting samples out there and downloads. If you're familiar with Opsman Jam, where we used to have all our samples, it was an external SharePoint site. We retired that in the last year. All of those samples have now moved into the TechNet gallery. So all the walkthroughs that we have on in the authoring guide, now we've got those completed exercises out there in the gallery to download. So we're trying to augment a lot of the content with downloadable samples. We'll do the same thing with the dashboard stuff. Some of the things, in fact, that Eugene showed, we're going to make, those will most likely be the samples that we provide for download with the source, with all the content around that. Okay. The other thing that I've been asked about a few times, and I was impressed because I was astounded that people, actually some made it through this long thing, but a couple times here at the conference I did full day. Basically, we took entire Monday and did pretty hardcore end-to-end authoring sessions. Pretty much everything there is to know about writing management packs in about 8 hours. I am going to get that content updated for OM12, and my goal is for this summer to actually get it recorded. So that way we'll get it online, we'll get it in video, so you can do it at your leisure instead of sitting in uncomfortable chairs at MMS doing it. Obviously, that'll all go out, referenced in the wiki and the whole bit. Easiest way to keep up with all my stuff is MP Author, is the Twitter account where I announce everything. I've got links on there. Pretty much anything I do, put out new, I do a blog entry, I point to it on Twitter. 3 basic sets of content where we're trying to get all this consolidated and basically keep you from searching around for everything. The authoring guide, again, that is all moved over to the wiki. A lot of new, really starting to get additions trickled in there. So next week, I actually have going up on all the old topics links over to the wiki, so we don't have confusion, so people know, look, updated topics are out here. The other couple things that I'm responsible for, and very briefly, the System Center Integration Guide actually has a scope. It's not, MPs are only a small part of it, but it's got a scope across all of System Center. Also in the TechNet Wiki, so again, trying for community collaboration. But the point of that is essentially to give one starting point for doing any sort of customization integration to System Center. So if you say, look, I've got a device, I'm a vendor, I've got a device, I want to integrate, say, with VMM, or I need a management pack for it, basically one place to go. And the goal of that content is essentially to say, I need to do some custom solution. Where do I go? Where do I start? What are the different technologies? What are the different integration points for the different System Center components, and where are they documented? And so that is the goal of that. Again, if you get there and find out, look, I asked that question, where do I go? I went to the integration guide. I couldn't find what I was looking for. I want to know about that. Right? I mean, that's absolutely, we're doing our best to maintain that and basically make it that first point of guidance for getting that content. The last thing that we're doing is really trying to acknowledge the fact that our content tends to be focused on different components, right? So I have management packs are associated with Ops Manager, runbooks associated with Orchestrator. But in reality, you want to do an automated scenario. A lot of times you're picking and choosing what solution am I going to use. Sometimes we do them together. I did a session last year on using management packs and runbooks together. So what we're trying to do is essentially consolidate that all under one umbrella. So the point of doing the System Center Authoring Hub, which the other two are a part of, is basically bringing all that content together. I want to do some automation in System Center. I've got my one spot to go, and we're going to try to make that a lot easier on you finding everything. So again, TechNet Wiki. So we can do some collaboration on that. And essentially, all the links to this stuff. So I've got the authoring guide up there. I've got the authoring hub. I don't have the integration guide link there, but you get to one, you get to all of them. I mean, the links are right there. Vanity URLs even to make it easy on you. Again, MP Author blog, Twitter account, anything that I'm doing that's interesting, I'm going to announce through there. Right? So I'd certainly invite you to have a look at that. I believe we are at time. Thank you. And I mean, I'll be around. I'm sure the other guys are going to be around for any questions as well. So, thank you. Question back here.
How do you edit product knowledge in the life workplace?
You want to take that one? How you edit product knowledge?
Is the mic on?
If you turn yours on.
I didn't turn it on.
Mine's still on.
Okay, it's on. So the question is, how do we edit product knowledge in Magic Packs? And right now, you will have to use the XML editor to basically enter the mammal into the XML empty fragment. But there is IntelliSense for it, so that should make it easier for you to do that. And also, MPPA, the best practice analyzer that you can use to scan Magic Pack for best practice violations, will tell you which sections and what is missing from your knowledge when you do that.
Are you still having a roadmap for the Visio added for offering, or is that being kept as CTP as drop?
So the Visio is the new version. Sorry, the question is about the Visio tool that we released in CTP fashion. So it's not the final version. We have. It's not working. Okay, this one is good. So the question is about the Visio tool that we released in CTP, but has never reached RTM yet. And there were labs at this conference, the Brian ran on that tool. We are thinking how we can ease the management pack authoring experience for more the IT pro audience and to simplify this. So there are some of those UI that can create code patterns that we're definitely looking to use. We aren't quite sure that the tool as it is really mature and satisfies all the necessary scenarios, so we would like to wait a little bit more and get more feedback from you on what works and what doesn't in that tool, and then take it from there, essentially. We are kind of in exploration mode on how we can simplify those scenarios. We think that Visual Studio has a very good platform foundation for us to build upon. The management backup practice analyzer is going to be out together with the authoring extension. We don't have a date yet, but it's very soon. It's being worked on as we speak, and
It's basically soon. Check back with us in a couple of months.
as soon as we think that the quality is enough. Sorry, what was the question? What is the question?
So we don't have a final date for the. Well, the question is what is the release date for the Visual Studio 2012 version of Visual Studio authoring extensions, and we don't have a date yet, but we are working on it. It's very close to being done. So I will just say this: check back with us in a couple of months, and we'll definitely have some answer for you. So the question is whether we would actually run a CDP release to kind of let you guys basically try the tool out and give us feedback. And this is there are internal conversations happening around this, and we don't have a final answer yet. But if it does happen, it will likely increase it will make the release date sooner rather than later. So it's supposed to be in. I'll repeat the question. Yes, I keep forgetting. The question is how to predict the column order in the snippet template, and also in how to basically which values correspond to which columns. So in this snippet, in the XML snippet, the order is really the document order. So the first one that appears wins, and then we remove the duplicates. When you're importing a CSV, It is the same order. Basically, you're supposed to have it in the same order. Do we have any other questions? Nice. Thank you for attending.